So zone grading, why do we need it? Why is it important? How does it work? Why should you care, right? All the questions. So first and foremost, with zone grading, kind of putting our butts out there on the line, quite frankly, because anybody can throw something in a slab and throw a number on it, which I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there and a lot of people have kind of just guessed that. I myself have gotten cards back with 10 labels. I won't mention the company, but I've gotten 10s out there that realistically are 6s and 7s, just not pretty cards. And I submitted those cards flat out knowing they were going to be 6 or 7s. They were just some of my personal favorites from my collection. Wasn't planning on reselling them, anything like that. I just love the artwork, and there's something I pulled personally years ago, and I just wanted to frankly keep it. So when you submit something like that in and you're expecting to get a 6 or 7 and you get a 10 back in return, you're just like, what on earth is going on here? There's got to be a better way. And the bottom line, whether you're using apps or artificial intelligence or whatever it is, people are still involved. People make mistakes, hands down, flat out. No person is perfect. No company is perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. That is just life. But what can we do to limit those mistakes? So I really racked my brain on this several years back on how you could make the system for grading more foolproof. So first and foremost, I don't know if anybody's had the time to hop online. You can jump onto many different job sites. There's a lot of them out there. Plenty of sources available. But do you guys have any idea what the average grader makes? Thought it would be way, way higher. Your average grader only makes about 20 grand a year. Yeah, there are some graders that make a little more than that, some that make a little less, but that's the average. You guys can look that up on multiple job sites, job listing sites, and kind of get that idea. But if you break that down per hour, it's pretty much minimum wage, depending on the state that you live in. When you're doing a task like grading that's really tedious, time-consuming, and really is kind of monotonous, quite frankly, and you're paying people minimum wage or closer, even a little above minimum wage, how likely are they going to continue to do a good job for you and continue to do that day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out? And the reality is people get lazy, they get complacent, they get tired, they can make mistakes, but especially make mistakes when you're not paying them well enough. So first and foremost, we feel it's a necessity to pay our graders well. So that's step one in making sure you're going to have graders that care about the final product. People, just human nature, we have the tendency to get complacent, especially when we're doing a mundane, tedious type of work. And quite frankly, that's what grading is. If you ever think about grading as being this really cool, awesome, fun thing to do, for some people, there's a handful of people that might be true for, but realistically, it is really a grueling, time-consuming type thing. You can only get so many cards done in an hour. And if you ever have a company pushing for quotas and higher numbers, things, quite frankly, are just going to get missed. So how do we cut down on that? How do we prevent mistakes like that from happening? Once again, not that we're going to be perfect or catch everything 100% of the time, but with zone grading, I think that we're really, really limiting the mistakes that humans are going to make through this process. So zone grading, how the heck does this work? So instead of looking at a card its entirety, or even looking at subgrade like corners and edges and surface and things of that nature, there's still a lot of it that is subjective to the human, or for that matter, even an artificial intelligence that's trying to figure it out. Now, there's some things that we like about artificial intelligence, and there's a ton of stuff that we don't like. I've talked to a lot of programmers and AI people, and quite frankly, when it comes to AI, there's only so much that you can do and get done. Unless you're in a clean room in a spick and span perfect environment, you're gonna have paper flakes, dust, and any other type of debris, pet dander, anything that is in your house, and anything that could end up on your card, such as floating in particles through the air right now in everybody's home, no matter how clean you are. It's just the reality of life. So unless you're in a multi-million-dollar clean room, clean facility, you're never gonna have a perfect surface that an AI can detect. An AI sees a white flake or spot on a card. It has no way of telling if that is a dust flake, a smudge, a scratch, an imprint, a dent. It just knows that it sees something. A human can see that same exact thing and be able to clean it off with a microfiber cloth, and bam, you got a good clean surface. So step one in the zone grading process is our in-house zone grading app. We opted to go this route, which is a little bit of a combination of human/computer performance, which is pretty cool. So with our app, we can actually scan and take a computer image of that card, both front and back, and the app will automatically break down each zone for the grader, and the grader has the ability to magnify each zone on the computer, as well, of course, using other magnification tools, whether that be a jeweler's loupe, magnifying glass, or scope, because depending on lighting and what the situation is, some tools work better than others. But the first thing that the app does is allows us to see anything on the surface, and a person can then detect, hey, is this a flake of dust that can be cleaned with a microfiber cloth, or is this something that is actual damage to the card? But the first initial image gives us an idea of what kind of card and condition that we're looking at, and then a human is going to go through and actually verify the findings from the pictures of each individual enlarged zone. So as opposed to looking at the entire card as a whole, what we do is we break the card essentially into 18 different cards. We have 9 zones on the front and 9 zones on the back. So any card we grade, regardless of the size, the zones break down in the same way. So in order for a card to get a 10, each zone has to be cleared by a grader. And grader has a score sheet. This is something they physically have to write down because it's different than just doing something on the computer the entire time. You're breaking the thought process down for the human to go from computer to hand to writing something down to checking something out with a magnifying glass or with a computer microscope. And then what a grader does, as opposed to looking at the card as a whole and potentially missing something, the grader has to clear each and every zone one by one. This process reduces the potential errors a person can make by looking at the card as a whole. So we have to grade each zone. So if zone 1 clears and there's no flaws or marks detected, surface areas, corners, nothing damaged, it clears, it gets a green check mark, the grader then has to move on to zone 2. If the grader, for example, catches an error in zone 2, they literally have to log it on their scoring card. So they're literally having to check off zone by zone. So each card is like breaking down 18 different smaller cards. When a zone is detected that it has a problem, it's immediately put down on the scorecard so it can't be forgotten. So we're just checking off each zone one by one until we get to all 18 zones. If all 18 zones are completely clear, then obviously you have a 10. So if a grader goes through all 18 zones, get green check marks all the way through, and it passes with a 10, obviously that's super awesome. We're excited for you. We want to grade 10s. But it doesn't end there. The first grader will then ask a second grader, not my 7-year-old son, like an actual qualified second person, to come in and actually check out the grade and verify that it's a 10. So 10s get verified twice through the zone grading system.